Hello everyone. Welcome to the fifth video in my series, Introduction to Digital Illustration with Adobe Illustrator. In today's video, we'll be looking at making patterns, using and making brushes. If you'd like to follow along, download this video's file from the link in the description box. Alright, let's begin. Let's start with making patterns. Making patterns in Adobe Illustrator is quite simple. It has a really helpful and effective tool to help you make and refine your patterns. So first, let's take a look at the demo board. I've drawn a few shapes here, and we will turn this into a pattern. So Illustrator will make a pattern tile from the bounding box around these shapes. So what we need to do is we just need to drag this into our swatches panel. So we'll just take our swatches panel, I'll drag it out, and then I will drag this into our swatch panel. So now you can see that we have a new swatch that has just been made. So now let's just take this square right here, and then we'll apply that swatch that we just made. So now you can see that there has been a pattern applied to the inside of it. If we extend it down, you can see that the pattern just repeats. So from here, we can actually go in and edit our pattern. All we need to do is we need to click on our pattern tile to open up the pattern options panel. So we'll just take that, and then you'll see that now we can see our whole pattern. You can see that there's some awkward gaps here and there, and then we might want to even that out. So we can start moving some shapes around, or we can add some shapes by alt dragging, and then we can start evening the shape around just like that. So now we can get a good sense of our tile, of our pattern. And from here, you can even change whether you want it to, how much you want to repeat, so you can see just how it looks over a larger area. What you can also do is that if you find that the bounding box is a little too tight, you can increase the size a little bit more from here and here, just like that. And what you can also do is you can change the type of pattern. Generally, I use grid, but you can do brick by brick, and then that sort of staggers it. As you can see, it starts halfway, the next row starts halfway across, or you can do brick by column and other options. So this might give a little bit more interest to your grid, to your pattern. So if I decide to just choose just a simple grid pattern, I can just move stuff around and then resize some elements and just help even out some of those awkward spaces. So we'll just kind of move some into those spaces right here. Maybe we can even resize them to be a little bit smaller. And then just like that, just to even up the space just a little bit. I'm also going to change the color a little bit just to give it a little bit more contrast and to make it a little bit more interesting. All right, I think that's all right. And then once we're done, all we have to do is hit escape, and then you'll see that our pattern swatch has been updated. So whenever you want to re-edit your pattern, all you have to do is double click inside and then do whatever you want within it, just to even out your elements, say, or change some of the colors, and then hit escape, and then you can see that it'll always automatically update anywhere where the pattern is applied. So now let's take a look at calligraphic brushes. A calligraphic brush takes a circle or oval and brings it across a stroke, giving the line a pen-like quality. The technique is also simple. Let's first open our brushes panel, and I'll drag that out. So our calligraphic brushes are all of these brushes in square tiles up here. And then what we can do is that we can select the strokes, so just these ones right here, that we want to apply our stroke to. So as you can see here that this one is already highlighted. But we can also choose other ones, and you can see how a calligraphic brush works by giving it sort of this shape, this sort of diagonal ellipse over it, and takes it along the path, giving it a very calligraphic feel. So we can make a new brush, or we can adapt any of these ones, but let's just adapt one of them that we have already. So let's just select our strokes again, and apply any of the strokes that you like. So we'll just choose that one again. And then, and you can deselect it if you like. If we edit the brush, it'll automatically update. So, and then now we'll edit the brush. So we'll just double click on any of the brushes. In this case, I'm going to choose the one that I chose right here. So I'll just double click here. And then I'm going to make sure that preview is selected on right here. So I'll make sure that's checked on. And then here, you can just select the angle, the roundness, and the size of your brush. So generally, I like to keep them on fixed. And then you can sort of adjust the angle, sort of as if it was a nib of a pen. So often the angle of a nib pen is about, I believe, is about 60 degrees, I believe, right around there. And then this option sort of just how round the stroke is. So a little bit rounder makes a little friendlier feeling, but with a little bit thinner makes a more regal feeling. So I want it to look a little bit friendlier. So I'm going to draw it out a little bit more. And then you can also change the size. So how thick that stroke is. So a little thinner, of course, it's a little finer, looks a little bit more sophisticated, and a little thicker just gives it a little friendlier feeling. So you can just do it like that to just adjust your stroke ever so slightly. So feel free to play around with that to perfect your line quality. If you have a tablet, what's really helpful is that if you set this to pressure, and then you just set this variation, make sure that it's not at 0, where you can see it's kind of all the same. You just want to take the variation up, and then you'll get a pen with pressure sensitivity. And then I don't have a tablet right now, so you can try it out for yourself if you have one. And after you're done, hit OK, and you can see that anything that the stroke has already been applied to beforehand, and where we saw it changing, you can either choose to leave the stroke as is, or you can apply strokes, and which I'm going to have it apply to strokes. And there we have it. So our updated calligraphic brush is right there, and then you can see that it has been updated onto this path, this stroke right here. Next, we'll look at scatter brushes. Scatter brushes are helpful to fill your image with simple graphics and create a sense of randomness in your illustration. We'll drag a shape into our brushes panel. This can also be a group of shapes, and then we will adjust its values, which we can also do afterwards to edit and refine our brush. So here, I'm just going to select the shape, and I'm going to drag it into my brushes panel. Now a new dialog box will pop up, and then I want to choose the first option, the scatter brush, and I'll hit OK. So then we'll get a bunch of options, so just like right here. And the ones that I want to change are, first the name, I guess, Star Brush. And then I personally just like to set them, all of these, to random. And then again, we can change these a little bit afterwards. And then I find the star actually a little bit big, so I'm just going to take down the size. So now this will vary between 45% of the size to 65% of the size. And then we're also going to do change the spacing. So what spacing does, as we'll see in a bit, is that it changes the spacing between the elements on a path. And then, so I'm just going to have that just a little bit right here. Because they're a little bit smaller, I'm going to take it down. Maybe I'll just go similar to right here. So yeah, I'll put a few closer together. And then scatter, what scatter does, it takes it off the path. And then I'll revisit this in a second. So I don't want it to go off the path too much, otherwise it looks a little bit too erratic. And then rotation, I'll just put down random as well. And because it's pretty much symmetrical always, I'm just going to turn it all the way up here. And now, lastly, we have the colorization method, which is whatever the stroke color will be, all of these objects will be colored in the same way. So since it's black, the key color is black, and I'll just change this to hue shift, which is the option I use most. If you want to see what it's all about, then you can click on this one, and it'll tell you what exactly happens. For me, I think hue shift is probably the one that works best for me. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll hit OK. And then you'll see right here that we now have a new scatter brush. So now I'll just apply it to this stroke right here. and I'll just hit the star. So now you can see that the yellow stroke is now turned into yellow stars all around it, and then there's stars all around the along the path. Because it was a scatter, you can't really tell, as this one's quite off, but let's just go back in and then we can edit it. So we'll just double click on the star brush right here, and you can see that re-edited. And then we'll want to make sure that our preview is on so we can see exactly what's going on. And then we can now just finesse our little brush right here. So we can see that we can take the size down a little bit. So maybe have a little bit more variation between the big stars and the small stars, just like that. Spacing here, I'll turn the scatter to 0 for now. And then, so then now you can see the spacing. So now you can see the spacing is pretty regular. But if I decrease it, so you can see that some of them have a little closer spaces. And if I increase it, then it'll have some larger gaps. So I will just try to fine tune it just like that. And then on the scatter, you will see that if I decrease it, then it kind of goes off the path. And then if I increase it right here, or vice versa, then it goes on the outside the opposite direction of the path. And then again, rotation is perfect, so I'll leave it that as is, and I'll hit OK. And then again, just like what happened in the back, since I just added this stroke with all the finessing, then I'm going to actually just go apply the strokes instead of leaf strokes, just like that. So there we have a random scatter brush. And then if you want to just adjust it, you can just keep on clicking on the tile there. This works really well if you have a couple of different shapes. So if you want to make a circle brush, you make another one, then you'd have a variety of different shapes. Yeah, so again, this brush is really great to create a sense of randomness in your illustration, and also to fill something like the background with a lot of extra shapes just to fill in the background. Next up, we have art brushes. Art brushes stretch a graphic along a path. This tool has many uses. In this one, I make a plant, but you can also use it to give textures to lines. I'll talk about this a little bit later. So first, let's drag the shape to the brushes panel, this plant shape, and we can just drag that to the brushes panel. In this case, in many aspects, you can probably just drag it vertically, but sometimes it doesn't work. And I'll just show you, and I've tried to find my way around it, but unfortunately I couldn't find the solution. But generally you should be able to drag in a plant shape vertically, going from top to bottom, and then you can drag that in, and then we'll select art brush. So we'll hit OK, and then we want to just change the stretch between guides, and then we just want to put that between the leaves and above the little bud right here. And then we can change the direction. I want to head upwards as a plant would grow. And I'll set the method to hue shift. So, and then that will take the color of whatever the stroke line is, such as the green right here. And I'll hit OK. So in this case, unfortunately, it turned to be vertical. In many cases, maybe on your end, it will actually end up to go from left to right instead. If I apply this one to the stroke, you'll see that it doesn't quite work. So I'm just going to hit undo. And if you kind of encounter this problem, I'll show you how to fix it. So Adobe Illustrator is just recognizing this and is not rotating the direction. So all we have to do here is we just have to rotate it. And then we'll just delete this brush since we won't use it. And then we'll just do the same, and we'll just drag it in here. And then we'll select an art brush again, just like right there. And then we'll have a stretch between guides and this way, and then we'll just move this up like this, just like that. Again, colorization, we'll put on hue, and then this one, I just wanted to end at the leaves. So I'll hit OK, and that will make it correct. So again, if it didn't work out for you vertically, just rotate the shape 90 degrees and it should work for you. And then now I'll just apply that stroke to the plants. And now you can see that we have some nice little buds growing upwards from the strokes. So there are actually a lot more art brushes within the brushes library in Adobe Illustrator. So to open that up, we'll just click on the menu bar right here, and then we'll hit Open Brush Library. There are a few, and they'll also cover some pattern brushes, which we'll talk about a little bit after. But say under artistic, you can choose different types of texture. So ink, paintbrush, scroll pen, and also under vector back, there's also some grunge brush vectors there too. And these are quite nice, but we'll do artistic, and let's just do charcoal. So you can see that there are a couple of options right here, and then we will just apply that to our stroke. So you can see that they have sort of a sort of textured quality to it, just like that, and just like that. So again, you can just zoom in, and then you can get a better sense of the texture, just like that. Generally, I do not like to use these texture brushes. I find that once you use them, you'll see them everywhere, in logos, in just in a lot of graphic things you see in the everyday. I find them a little bit cheesy, and then once you see them, you can't unsee them. So in general, I like to avoid them. Another reason why I don't really like them is that often, if the path is really long, it really starts to distort that shape, as we can see in what I've just done right here by extending the shape. Because it takes a shape and extends it all the way along. If the stroke is too long, you start to lose the quality of that texture. So it might not be helpful to you if you have some really long paths. But I think maybe used with restraint, you might get some good effects to it. But I will just turn it back to the little leaf texture that we had from before. So just close that, and then we'll move on to the next one. Finally, we have pattern brushes. So a pattern brush takes a graphic and repeats it along the path. This brush is really great if you want something like an art brush, but you don't want it to stretch too much. A little stretching happens, but this one, it repeats it over the entire path. So an interesting use of this is that you can put, say, images in a row, but another example would be, say, if you want to do footprints, or if you want to do a very decorative border. So again, the process is similar to before. So we're just going to take our pattern brush, sort of the towel for that, and in this case it's just of some photographic stills, and then we'll just drag this into our brushes panel. And then we'll just click on pattern brush. So we'll hit OK. And then from here, I like to just leave it on the default and everything. If you have a graphic, vector graphic, then you can do a hue shift. But since it's a photo, it won't change. And then we'll hit OK. And then we can just apply this now to a path. And then you can kind of see that now you have some images going along the path. And that's a little interesting use of it. You can also add different corner pieces and everything, but I've generally haven't used that too much. But if you like to, you can see how to do it with the sample pattern brushes that come with Adobe Illustrator. So just like before, we will open up the brushes library, and then we can see that they have a few pattern brushes too. So let's just take a look at the borders. And then we'll just choose something interesting like geometric. And then from here, you can see that these are pattern brushes. And you have a few examples of them. And then so we'll just select the line that we want to apply to. And then we can just select a border that we can use. So you can kind of see here. And then if you want to, you can even do you can see how it works when we do it in a rectangle, and how the corner pieces work out as well. So as you can see in this one, the corner pieces are these ends right here, and then the inside is right there. And then if you want to look at something like this one, you can see that there's also specific corner pieces. So you can take a look at how to make this in other examples. But generally, I don't use this too often. I will often just make a border myself and then piece it together. Finally, let's put it all together. Let's try to make the image below by applying the patterns and brushes we made to the image to the right. All right, so let us first start with patterns. Let's select the body, and we'll just apply our pattern to it. So as we can see, there we have the pattern, but we don't have the yellow background. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy, and then I'm just going to paste it in front. So Control C, and then I'm just going to go Control F, and then I'm going to paste that right on top, and I'm just going to choose this mustard color and then put it right there. And just because I pasted it in front, it'll now overlap my pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it to the backs and move it up one. So I'll just hit Control Shift left square bracket, and then move it up one step by Control right bracket right up there, and then I'll just move the gray background right there to the back. So I'll just do that, and then now that we've applied the pattern, now let's move on to the calligraphic brush. So I'm just going to select this line right here, around here, and I'm just going to use that blue line, and I'm just going to apply a calligraphic brush to it, just like that. Honestly, that looks all right. Not too much we need to change there. Maybe we can make it a little bit thicker. So maybe I'll increase the roundness, just like that. Hit preview, and that looks great. I'm just going to increase it a little bit more, just like that. And then I'll hit apply to strokes. And then now let's use our scatter brush for the stars. So we can see that this stroke in the back, I have it set to white, and then we can use that for our star brush. So now let's apply our scatter brush. So we'll just take this back path right here, and then we're just going to select it, and then we will put our scatter brush onto it. So here we have some stars, and we can just keep editing until we have something we like. So right there looks great. And then we'll click off of it, and that looks great. Feel free to edit it if you like later on. And now we will now use our art brush to make our plants. So we'll just use this one, and we'll click there, and then we'll have some brushes, some plants made. So that's quite easy. Now we have a illustration with a bunch of elements using art brushes. So just to finish this off, let's just take this image, and then we'll just put a clipping mask around it so that we'll contain it within a frame. So I'm just going to select this one. I'll hit Control C, and then I'll paste it in front, so Control F. Now I'll just select everything underneath there. So I'll select all that, but not this text. And then I'm just going to hit Control 7 to make a clipping mask. And there we have it. Now we have a lovely little illustration that is using art brushes and patterns. All right. I hope you found that helpful. I'll see you in my next video where I introduce effects, appearances, and blending tools and modes. So thanks for watching.